In today's advanced Python pandas video, we're going to be covering how you could find rolling window calculations within sequential data in your data frames. We're going to go through 11 different examples and also take a look at dates towards the very end of this video. Lot to cover like always, so let's jump right into the code. All right, let's get started. So we're going to import in pandas as PD and import in numpy as np. Once those are in here, we should be good to go. First thing we're going to do is create a data frame. So a few different steps that we're going to take to do that. First, we'll have a list on this side of things. So let me grab this list. It's quite long, so I recommend you just grab it from our website, and the article link is going to be down below in the description. So what we have over here is a date, a venue, city, state, and then also the amount of people, the capacity of the venue. These are loosely based around Billy String's tour right now. So I've asked GPT to help generate this data set. So some of this is actually true. Some of this is part of hallucinations that doesn't actually exist, these tour dates. So that doesn't really matter too much. It's a good example for this video. Maybe too much examples in here, but that's fine. So we have data on that side of things. Then we're going to create a data frame. So to do this, we're just going to put df equals pd.dataframe, pass in our data. We're going to have to also specify our columns. So we're going to say columns equal, and we'll have over here dates, venue, city, states, and then capacity. And should be good there. Capacity. We're also going to create another column a little bit later on in the tutorial, but we won't have to do that now. And we'll just say df head just to show you what this looks like. And there you go, 5, right? Date, venue, city, state, and capacity. This is going to be in the future, but if we expand this out, here we go. I'm at this concert, so there we go. And I'm sure this video will be late April or early May when it's out, but yeah, hopefully this is a pretty good show. I expect it to be. All right, so let's jump into our first example. So example 1, which is the rolling average for last 3. And let's jump into the code. So we're going to say df over here, rolling mean. What I recommend also to do is just specify your window size. So what I would say is just put the rolling mean 3, just so that way it's descriptive. And then we just say df grab our capacity. And I should mention this is creating a brand new column. So we're going to grab the capacity column, and we're going to do the rolling mean on 3 entries on there. So we'll say window equals 3. And a few things we'll take a look at in a second once we print out this data frame. And I'll just put .mean here at the end. I do have an error over here, and I probably misspelled capacity. And I did. There we go. Cool. And let's take a look at what this data frame looks like. So I'll just do a df head of 10 again over here, and you'll see that we have this new column. But here's one thing that's interesting, right? We have these null values here, and the reason is we just don't have 3 entries, right? This is the first one, so we don't have a rolling mean based off this window size of 3. This is our second one. Again, we don't have that over here. Then this is our third one, which takes the average capacity of Atlanta times 2, and then also Nashville. So it does that. And then you can see for this one, right, the average has decreased. Well, that's because we take a look at this row, and the one above it, right? Window size of 3. Now, a little bit later on in this tutorial, I'll also show you how we can fill these null values. But regardless, right, basic example, window size, right? Think about, okay, we want to look at the average of 3. If we do 5, right, it'll look at 5. So very important that you get that correctly. Let's take a look at the rolling sum, which is another common use case. So we'll say example 2, my nice spelling of example, but that's fine. It'll be fixed on the website, and we'll say rolling sum. And what we'll do over here is just call df rolling sum. And I'm going to be lazy and not put the exact integer on here of 3, just so it looks a little cleaner. But we'll go over here and do the same thing, right? So we'll say capacity, and then that rolling. Again, window 3, window equals 3. And this time we can do sum. And I'm not going to show you every single statistic in this video. There's a ton that you could use rolling with, but it's very common to use it for the mean. It's very common to use it for some, and we'll have that over there. Again, my spelling. I misspelled it on there, so I probably should just fix that, to be honest with you guys. Let me fix that, because it's going to bother me for this whole video. Let me rerun that. All right, we're going to just rerun that over here. So now this works. Cool. And just to show you now, just do a basic head. Same thing, right? So with this rolling sum, it's going to look at 3. So it sums these 3 up over here, and that's why we still have null values on there. Another one which is very common, and this will be the last one. Again, there's a lot of statistics that you could use. Not the last example in this video. There's quite a few examples still to go. But we'll look at min and max, right? Min and max. And you can just do that over here. You just say rolling min and rolling max. Same exact thing, right? Now we have 2 new columns based off of that, and I can just do df, and you can see, we'll only do df head 10 or head of 5, doesn't matter too much, but you can see again, it generates these over here, and you'll have your null values initially. All right, let's change this up a little bit, because again, this is quite repetitive for these first few examples, and we'll look at rolling for different columns. So what I want to do first is actually create a new column for our data set, our data frame. So example 4 for rolling window, different columns, and let's jump into that. So what we're going to create a new column. We're going to say np.randomSeed, put in here 42, and what we'll do next on this side of things is create our column, and our column is going to be called tickets sold. Now you don't necessarily need to know exactly how this NumPy code works for this video, because you're specifically learning about rolling, but ideally what we're going to do is build out a new column called tickets sold, and it's going to be based off of capacity, so we're just passing capacity over here, and then we're going to say times, and let me remove that extra thing over there, times np random uniform, right, 0.9 and 1 there, 1.0. Then we're going to say length of the data frame, and then we're going to say as type. All right, because we can't have like a partial person for tickets sold. So now what you'll see if I go over here to df.head 5, which is default, but I do have an error over here because I have this as ticket sold being 0. So I'm actually going to fix this really fast. And the error is I just forgot to put an extra set of parentheses over here, and that should be good now. And you can see tickets sold is correct on this side of things. Again, we're assuming that 90 to 100% of tickets are sold at every date, so it's going to be randomized. We have this in a set for 42, so that way you can replicate these results if you want to follow through this tutorial. So what we do is take the capacity times that random uniform, right, anything from 0.9 to 1, and then we cast this as an integer because we don't want to have a partial ticket sold. So that is what that code is doing. But why you care for this example, right? We want to find a rolling window for different columns. So let's do that. And all we have to do on this, it's actually quite easy. So in data frame, right, 2 brackets, because we're going to look at 2 different things. We'll say rolling mean capacity, and we'll say 5 on this one. And then we'll say is over here, rolling mean tickets, and 5. and we'll just go over here, equals, and we'll say df, two of these over here, capacity, then tickets sold, dot rolling, put window equals 5 this time, and then just do the mean, right? So now we could use rolling with multiple columns at the time. Remember, just use 2 brackets, right? And there we go. And we can just go over here and just take a look at what this data frame looks like for these two. And you can see across the board, right? Again, the null values initially, and then we get our data points that we specifically want. All right, so kind of in the same capacity, we could also find multiple aggregate values at once. So let's do that. We'll say rolling stats. Oh, let me mention this is example 5. And why I always try to put the examples here is the first round for these videos, I try to have an article that's one-to-one with these videos. I will make revisions or also improvements to the articles over time. So initially when this comes out, try to have these one-to-one. If not, it'll be slightly different in the final version. All right, so what we'll have over here is rolling stats. So rolling stats equals df. We'll grab our capacity, right? And then we'll say over here dot rolling. We'll say our window still equals 5, right? That's fine. And then we'll do dot ag. And what ag allows us to do, right, is to utilize multiple statistics. So we can grab our mean, we can do our sum, we can do our standard deviation, right? So just pass all of those in right here, right, in our list, then ag. And now you can just go over here to rolling stats, and we have all these across the board, right? Mean, sum, standard deviation. And yeah, another way that you could utilize multiple calculations at once. I'm just going to put over here as like a head of 10, and that's much cleaner. I'll just also put like head 3 for that one. Otherwise it takes up too much space. All right. Again, you can grab the full thing on the website if you want to. And let's jump into our 6th example, which is using apply. So example 6, use apply. And we'll also use a Lambda function with apply. I do have a full video covering Lambda functions, probably a little bit earlier in this playlist, so you want to check that out. Same with apply. Highly recommend you know how both those work before even jumping into this video. So what we're going to do is create a range. So we'll say rolling range, and we're going to say this is equal to df tickets sold, so tickets sold. And again, we'll say rolling, just do window equals 3, and do dot apply. So dot apply, and then write a Lambda function. So what we'll say in here is a Lambda x. We'll say x dot max minus x dot min, over here, and we'll also add it over here. That. And what we'll do now is just take a look at what this looks like. So for the rolling range, you can see for the first two that we don't have anything over there, right? The next one is 760, then we have 542, right? Max minus min, 542, 15. This, again, based off of tickets sold. You can go back up over here. Let me show the whole data frame. We'll actually do that. Do 15. All right, so capacity, tickets sold, right? So just to show you how this math works, scroll over here to the side. Actually, I probably need to scroll over a little more. Let me actually do multiple columns. What we'll do is tickets sold and then rolling range. And just put another pair of brackets around those. This will work. All right, so you can see on this side of things, right? 20048 is going to be our max on these three. This is going to be the min 19288. So it just takes the subtraction between these two, and we get 760 over here. right? And now we take a look at this next one. We have 19,433, we have 19,883, and we have 19,288. Well, this is the max, this is the min, so then it just takes that over there. So it keeps going across, right? Looks at 3, what's the maximum over here, what's the minimum, subtract them across, right? Lambda x, x minus max, minus x min, and we get those on that side of things. All right, so we have that now, and what I want to do now is do a group by on here. So this should be example 7. That's example 7 is a group by with it. And you can also take a look at venues. So in this case, right, there is repetitions of specific venues. So sometimes if you're in a part of a jam band, they'll play 2, 3, all the way up to 6 nights in the same venue in a row. So maybe we want to compare the capacity at different nights and different things like that. So that's where rolling would be kind of interesting based off the venue side of things. So what we'll do over here is rolling mean venue. And then you just do a simple group by. So df.group by, then pass in your venue, then look at capacity. So capacity, I hope venues, I think it's capital V. So just grab that, change it, and then do the rolling again. So rolling window equals 3 dot mean dot reset index level equals 0 drop. It's true. All right, and now let's just take a look at what this looks like. So we'll go over here and have our venue first, and then we'll just pull in this rolling mean venue. So just grab that over here. And yeah, so you can see over here, State Farm, nothing, right? So there's only 2 concerts there. Bridgestone, nothing. St. Augustine Amphitheater, right? We get the mean after this third one on this side of things for the capacity. And actually, we really shouldn't use the capacity because it's always going to be the same for a venue. We should look at tickets sold. So I'm going to make that change on this side of things. So we'll change it to tickets sold and run that. All right. Actually, one other change that I find would be better is instead of 3, let's put it at 2, because you can see like State Farm, Bridgestone, both those have 2 dates. St. Augustine has 3, Yingling has 1, and Market has 2. Cocoa Booth has 3, so that's why we have that. But we don't have a lot of results when we do window 3, so let's change that to 2 also on here, and we should get a lot better. Yeah, so you can see now over here, State Farm, right, we have results on here because there's 2 in a row. Bridgestone, right, St. Augustine, we get the average there over here, right? Also works out. And then the single markets, we don't. So that's how you can use group by. I find group by pretty impactful on this side of things. And yeah, let's keep moving forward. Now, one of the issues that we've had so far in this video is these null values, right? And how do you address those? Well, you could use something called min periods. And let me go through over here. We'll say example 8, which is min periods. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So what we'll say is df on here, and we'll have rolling average. We'll say min periods, and we're going to say this is equal to df, and we'll put over here capacity dot rolling. We'll say window equals 5, right? So we're still going to look at 5 in a row. But one thing we can put over here is min periods equals 3, right? So what that'll do is now it'll start populating after 3 rather than 5, right? And then after, once we hit that 5 number, it'll always use 5. So that way we have less null values, at least initially. And then you can see mean. And I'll show you what this looks like a few different ways. So let's have that over here, and we'll go on that side of things. And you can see like we only have 2 that are blank, right? Because this is the third one over here. So when we use 3, there's that side of things. But then we keep moving forward. This 5 uses all of these above and has the 5, right? So from there on, we start using 5 as our window. But before we look at 3, then we look at 4, then we look at 5. And if we go over here to like min periods 1, right? you'll see if we go back up over here, everything is filled, right? So it's average there, average, and then it just slowly increases up to that window size of being 5. So I'm just going to put 3 back because that's what I'm going to have on the article, but that will showcase, if we want to have no null values, put in 1 on that side of things. All right, let's continue, and we're going to jump into example 9. And what we're going to do in this one is use shift with rolling, And there's a few different approaches that you could use shift with rolling, but we'll do our first one over here. So we'll say df, and we'll say rolling shift. And what we'll say on that is equal to df. We'll grab capacity, and we'll say dot rolling window equals 5. We'll do our mean. And you could either shift up or down. And we'll say that shift 1. And we'll minus our capacity. So that way what we're essentially doing is how does our current capacity compare to the recent average? That's what this code is looking at. And we'll run that. And you can take a look. We're going to have some null values initially. But we'll have this go across over here, right? Null values, and then you can start seeing changes both positive and negative. All right, and like I said, this is pretty cool to do, and a few different ways you could approach this, right? You can shift up or down multiple spots if you want to. I just did 1 in this instance, right? You don't have to subtract out, but I find you can subtract out to find the change. It really just depends on the use case with it, but I just want to show you can use rolling, mean, and then you just add on shift to the very end of it. What we're going to do now is look at a few different ways that you could handle some null values. So what we'll do, and I should have probably just put this to like head of 10 because there's too much there. We'll put that there. All right, so now we're going to look at example 10. We're just handling null values. And let's jump into that one with a forward fill. We'll say a fill. And what you can just do over here is df rolling average forward fill. Remember we showed you a little bit earlier other ways you could fill in these null values essentially, but we can go over here df capacity, right? And we'll say forward fill, right? And then now you do your rolling window 5, and then you could use your mean. Oops, and I meant to do dot mean. Right, so another way you could do that, and you'll see if I do a head, we'll do 10 again, head 10, that, right? We have our values across over here, right? We don't have values. All right, so for example 10, it's not going to be super useful in this data set. But what you can do also is handle null values. And what is one common way to do that? And we'll say rolling filled values is a forward fill, right? Or a backwards fill. So you can just do a df capacity, right? And then you can say forward fill. And again, we have all values within this data set, so it's not really going to make a difference. Then you can do rolling, right? Say your window equals 5, and then do mean like that. Again, you can keep adding to your rolling, right? So we're forward filling before we roll. That's just another way that you could do that. Again, our first few values are going to be null. You can see that. But I showed you a little bit earlier how we could fill those, right? With them in periods. This is just specific looking at your data set. If there's some null values, how you could roll with that. All right, we're going to do now, and that was example 10. We'll jump into example 11 now. Sorry, I meant to put this over here. Example 11. And what we're going to do with this one on here is the rolling window. So we'll see center rolling window. And that's just another parameter on here. And what we'll do on that is df centered rolling average equals df capacity dot rolling, then say your window, so window equals 5. We'll say we're centering it, right? Center equals true. Get the mean. And what you'll find too is we're going to have less null values now because we're using center. And we'll say head 10. And what you'll see is now we have our values populating in the second index. Whereas before, right, we didn't have any values until we had 0, 1, 2, 3, right? We had to get all these, but now our values are centered. All right, now we're going to look at example 12. So example 12, which is rolling based on days. And what we're going to do first is set a date index. So we'll say df over here, dates. We're going to say equals pd dot to date time df date. And what I will also say on this side of things, right? I will have a date and time video here on the channel for the pandas playlist. I have not recorded that as of yet, but it is on the backlog. So what we're going to do is set an index. We're going to say date. We'll also say in place equals true. Right. So we'll have that over here. And just to show you what df looks like now. It's going to be crazy, but we have our index over here, right? So I'm just going to delete that because it's in the way. And what we're going to do is find a rolling 7-day average. So we'll say df rolling average 7 days equals df capacity, and we're going to say dot rolling. And what you can do now, pass in over here is 7D, which stands for 7 days, right? Instead of window, we're specifically looking at a time frame, right? 7 days, and then we can just do dot mean, right? And now what you can see is we have the rolling 7-day average if we go over here. So there you go. And let's recap everything that we covered in this video. It's a lot. I'm actually recording a second day since I started this. So good little recap for you guys. So we started with the basic example of a rolling 3-day average, right? Then I showed you we could also do the sum. Min and max is also quite common to utilize. And then this one over here, right, example 4, I showed you how to roll with different columns. So we just created a new column over here for like tickets sold. And I showed you can essentially do 2 rolls at a time, right? Mean capacity and mean tickets, right? Pass in both columns at the same time. Then I showed you we can do aggregates. So we can do mean, sum, standard deviation, etc. Right? We can use multiple of these at a time, create a new data frame. From that, use apply to write essentially custom functions to use rolling. Group by as well with rolling, which I find to be pretty practical. We'll scroll down a little bit. A min amount of periods, which will stop having specifically null values a little bit earlier, right? And since we had window 5, typically you would have null values all the way through 4 on your index side of things. But when we use our min periods, right, we stop that. Scrolling down a little bit more, showed you how to use shift with rolling as well. So you can kind of compare how one row is to the previous average. We also took a look at filling in null values if you are going to be using a rolling function, which you could use forward fill or backwards fill depending on how you want to clean up your data. There's other options to do too, but I just showed forward fill over here for an example. Centering your rolling window, which will again lower the amount of null values initially. And then lastly on here, what we did is show you how you could roll with specific dates. One of the cool use cases for this, right? Set a date time index and then just pass in your amount of days over here and you are good to go. So yeah, we covered a lot in this video and I hope you guys learned something new. Thanks guys for checking out this video on rolling window calculations. And if you found it valuable, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We're really trying to grow it and we're uploading in here from 2 to 3 videos every single week. Down below, you'll find all the code for this video as well as a link to our Discord server. Additionally, we do have one-on-one mentorships available if you want to clear up some concepts on the Python side of things or SQL side of things or need some career guidance. If you want to continue our pandas playlist, well, it's right over here. We're well over 20 videos into it and we're going to keep expanding it.